welcome to another Clever Dicks episode. In this episode, we speak to Dan Abel. Dan is a Christchurch swimmer who's absolutely passionate about his swimming. He was competitive in his youth, went over to the US on a swim scholarship, and now runs a consultancy about swimming and getting people into the water and enjoying the water. It was a very wide-ranging conversation. He's done an English relay challenge and a number of events, but most of his focus is on helping people to get into swimming and to enjoy it. He's also done a little bit of work with Swim Trek, where he is helping with swim holidays, guiding and preparing, and he does a bit of that in the South Island too. It was a great interview, and him and Duncan really bounced off each other, so I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. Welcome to another Clever Dicks episode. In this episode, we're talking to Dan Abel. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
Yeah, good. So, Dan, we normally start off these by giving people the opportunity to just tell us a little bit about their story and just sort of what's your swim story, and then once we've sort of got a bit of an introduction through, then we can sort of dive into more topics. Yep.
You want my swim story?
Yeah.
I had a little think about this when you invited me on the podcast, and I'm interested to see where you take my story. I started swimming when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I did my first age group nationals when I was 12. I did my last nationals when I was 33. I've been waterlogged probably my entire life, and water's had a big influence in my life journey. I've had some tangents where maybe I spent 9 years in the Air Force as a navigator and getting some planes lost and having some great life experiences. Funnily enough, though, that's brought me back to swimming as well. For a long time, I was a competitive swimmer. I was lucky enough to keep my love of swimming, and something I think that we should touch on is the sad outcome, I think, of people who love swimming and compete and go away and never swim again. I feel thankful and grateful that I've continued the journey, but it's been a bit of luck and circumstance as well. Now, probably my favourite thing to do is teach adults to swim and introduce them to the joys of swimming. And the definition of being able to swim that I give my adults is that I could take you to Lake Tekapo. And for those who aren't familiar with New Zealand or even the South Island, Lake Tekapo's down south. It's winter right now. I don't know what it'd be, 8 degrees. But anyway, teach you to swim. That means I could take you to Lake Tekapo today and throw you out of a boat and you could swim. I'm not saying that you'd be happy or comfortable, but that you have presence of mind and skill set that you could operate. For us, that's a true definition of being able to swim. So if you ask me what I do now, we run a consultancy. I love that broad term. And really what that means is anyone who has questions about swimming or we can help, or any project or initiative around swimming that we think we can have input in, we'll try and do it. That's what we do. But day-to-day, mainly swim coaching. There you go. There's a little bit of
that's good. There's a clever dick that I want to introduce you to that needs some swim coaching. He did a swim down at Alexandra, and after the swim he got at least 4 invitations to come along and actually get some swim coaching, because everyone was so amazed at the fact that he swam as far with the technique that he has at the moment.
Yeah. But you know what? I've been swimming like this for 25 years and I've never had an injury, and I still go forward. So that's all good, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Duncan. Yeah. And you enjoy it?
You know what? I can't picture my life without it, Dan. I started swimming late, and so thankful that I have learned, man. Yeah.
I don't know if you are late. You said you're under 50. My oldest learned to swim client's 82. We have plenty in their 70s. So it's interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, when I say late, I mean, yeah, okay. So when I say late, I mean I didn't swim, as a kid. Hence, I've got I guess, a reason for my poor technique, right? And I've had many offers to try and correct it, and I must be honest, I'm not interested in trying to correct it. I'm happy. I enjoy my swimming. I enjoy the way I feel in the water. And every time I try and fix something, it just becomes a pain in the ass. So, just put that in the too hard bucket.
Sounds like I can throw you in Tekapo and you'd be just fine. In fact, sounds like you might be happy
I'd
about
I'd float. Yeah, man.
Yeah. And you can get yourself to shore, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I could maybe make a barbecue and a sausage sizzle while I'm at it, right? So we're
You
all
don't
good.
call it a barbecue, though, do you? You don't call it a barbecue. What do you call it?
No, it's a braai. It's way better than a barbecue. A sausage sizzle is just like, what the hell is that? What is that? Dan, you're a proper Kiwi.
A proper Kiwi. I don't know if I'm a proper Kiwi. I've spent probably just as much time overseas as I have in New Zealand, but I'm actually more interested in talking about barbecue and braais because for me, that's one of the associations with swimming. It's so important is also food and me being on your
Coffee.
podcast, meeting cool people, right? Socialization.
100%.
Yeah.
There you
so
go.
I want to come back on your podcast. I'm going to hijack a little bit, come back to you talking about starting swimming late. You didn't swim as a kid. And this is part of my journey. I never wanted to be a swim coach, never wanted to be involved in it. Why? Because I swam competitively for so long, and the only swim coach I knew was as a competitive swim coach. And I didn't envisage myself standing on poolside with kids going to competition. I had no interest. Then about 12, 13, 14 years ago now, actually a little bit longer than that, I was on vacation from the Air Force in the UK, and I had occasion for I went for a rock climbing lesson. Rock climbing instructor sat me down and said, let's get to know each other. He said, I'm a rock climbing instructor who wants to swim the English Channel as a relay. And I said, I'm a swimmer. I want to learn to rock climb. And I got involved with these three amazing guys, Mick, Guy, and Jack were their names, and I ended up helping them out. And they're amazing rock climbers, tenacious individuals, and they got involved in swimming, and I helped coach them, if you will. And that's when it really highlighted to me, hang on a minute, competition, when we did this English Channel relay, which we ended up doing, their fourth team member pulled out, so I got involved, and that really got me into the UK open water swimming scene. Our greatest competitor is really ourselves. And I think more people at our age, that later age, get joy out of competing against themselves, finding out about their own limits. And that's really what I got involved in exploring and enjoying, and what got me back into swimming and got my interest in swim coaching. So when you talk about kids who have learnt to swim and are competitive in their teenage years, that's actually a minority of our worldwide global swimming family. And I think people often overlook that. The bigger fraternity is master swimming, social swimming, open water swimming, ice swimming, and everything else. So that's one of the reasons I had to come on this podcast and talk to you guys, because we need to keep getting those messages out there and actually telling people who think, I started late, actually, you're in the minority, you're in the right place. And there's plenty of people out there who can help you on the journey, and you can enjoy it.
Well, you shout your message as loud as you can, because you're on the same page as us. That's effectively why we're here, just get people into the water, enjoying it. But there's still a big gap. All those little whippersnappers like you were in the pool, Monday to Saturday, 4 hours a day, swimming up and down with a coach on the pool deck, walking up and down, shouting at them and wagging his finger. A massive percentage of those little guys stop swimming, right? Some of them end up playing water polo. A couple of them get hijacked by the rowing community, because I think they convert pretty well into good rowers. But a lot of them just stop completely, right? Now, what are we doing, I guess, as a community, or what's Swimming New Zealand doing, and what are schools doing? What are all those guys doing to try and, instead of just losing that little guy, why don't they send them to the local triathlon or to the local, Fit and Able every Thursday night or every Wednesday night, whatever it is in Christchurch, and do a 500-meter sea swim, right? I mean, that's ideally what we would want to see.
There's there are many answers to that question. The first thing, if anyone's listening who used to swim, just get that reminder out, try and think back and remember what you loved about it. Quite often, that competition can crush the enjoyment. quite often we get caught up in life and we get too busy to do it. But one of the things we're involved in, I was lucky in the UK and the Northern Hemisphere, there's a real growth in open water swimming, I think, before the Southern Hemisphere. And I met some great people, Simon Murray's at Swim Check, Simon Griffiths, who set up Open Water Swimmer, Outdoor Swimmer magazine. And they provided opportunities for people to participate without barriers. And by barriers can be a very small thing. And some of the things I see in New Zealand, you turn up at a swim squad and the coach is used to talking to teenage competitive swimmer and write some sort of abbreviation on the board that you've never heard of. They're speaking a new language, you don't even understand it, and you feel uncomfortable and out of the zone. Or just having access to it. So I was back here in Christchurch on the Port Hills in 2011 when the earthquakes hit. Quite traumatic. Okay. And I stayed on because it was my city and I don't want to help the people. And I'd already had exposure, understanding, I guess, of how important a part connection with water and swimming can play in people's health and wellness. And I decided I wanted to stay here in Christchurch and help people deal with their stress through swimming. One of the biggest barriers I came up with straight away is access. And that's something that we've been involved in since 2011. Okay, I want to go swimming. I listen to your messages, I agree. Where can I go swimming? And what we'll find is there's a lot of data out there, but school pool closure since the 1990s, 2000s, we're in the hundreds. Last I checked, we're nearing 400 school pools closed, and there's lots of reasons around that. Then if we talk about local body pools, council pools, quite often you'll find that the peak times when adults would like to go are taken up with kids learn to swim, because that's where a lot of the focus is and that's where the revenue is. So access at those pools and opportunities. And rather than just having a puddle and saying, here's a pool, use it, also we think at Fit and Able that you don't just build it and they will come, you build it and you provide support and information on how to do it. And then the third part of that is the open water side of it. Where can I go that I feel comfortable, that's safe, that the water's not polluted? Where is it safe to go swimming? And since 2011, coming back to New Zealand, we've been involved in projects around all of those aspects, trying to lobby for and provide access for adult swimmers, particularly those who haven't had a background in swimming, to feel comfortable, safe to go swimming. There you go. There's the short answer.
Okay. Jesus, that was a long answer. I was going to interrupt you, but you had such a good rhythm going, I thought I'd let it go. I'm one of those guys that do get a little bit antsy when I go down to the pool, normally, to your point, 5:30 after work, and I can't find a lane. Now, you know, when you get a little older, you sort of figure it out. You hop in, everybody's super friendly, and you learn how to swim, you know, in a circle. No problem. But for a lot of the new guys, I've noticed they'll stand on the side of the pool and they'll just watch and they'll wait and wait, almost for an invite or for a lane to be completely open, right? I often stay and say, you know, hey mate, like, come jump in, you know, just jump in and swim. And then they will. But if I didn't give them the invite, he'd still be standing on the pool deck, right? So that's definitely an issue.
You and I have talked about a number of initiatives. I think that there could be far more streamlined and better delivery for our swim services in New Zealand. And I think, you know, we run small little businesses, and for people, we run a limited liability company. And a lot of times people go, oh, that's for profit. Actually, it's for flexibility, it's for efficiency, it's for delivery. And particularly since the earthquakes, but most particularly since COVID, we've been able to pivot again. And because we are small, we have to be very efficient with what we do. And you can see how that cued me, didn't you, when you talked about government? When we look at some of the money being spent on swim services that doesn't deliver a great deal, then, and I'll give you an example here in Christchurch. 2011, we lost our beloved QE2 50-metre pool. 2011. We've only had an outdoor 50-metre pool since then, 2024. Now, 2025, the 50-metre, indoor 50-metre pool project that was scheduled for opening in 2017, I believe, that's going to cost
what's that, the Metro? What's it one called?
Million, the Metro Centre, yeah. That is going to nudge $500 million. Now, granted, it's a recreation centre, so there is a lot of other services, facilities in there, but it's smack bang in the middle of town. One of the biggest barriers to our swimming is convenience. It's got to be really accessible. Yep. So this is smack bang by a hospital. Parking's at a premium. It's busy. There's rush hour. There's everything. And for me, we're in a climate change, temperature change environment. When do most people want to go swimming? They want to go swimming in summer. That's peak time. What's the cheapest pool to run? An outdoor pool. So we don't need all the pools all year round. We need more pools in summer for sure. We have spent $500 million on one pool in Christchurch. And you are going to pay possibly $9 when you go in there. And you go, that's ridiculous. I'm like, well, they need to pay for a $500 million facility.
A whole new can of worms, though, right? Because they started building it and then they realized it was sinking, and then they had to it was a whole planning issue with that resulted in that cost. You know what I mean?
Come back to government versus us. If you started a project and you spent $75 million on admin fees before you broke ground, and you might then go, hey, value for money here for our customers, the people of Christchurch, is this a good project? Should we continue? What you'll find often with government is this project started, but we're too embarrassed. It's too difficult to turn it off. So we'll just crack on. And what's the outcome? Rates go up for the people of Christchurch. Everywhere they have these big projects. For $100 million, you'd be the same. Give us $100 million and we could deliver at least 6 good swimming pools. What's better value
100%.
for swimming?
100%.
So for me, it's like you buy a car for $40,000. Car's perfectly great. You buy another car for $140,000. $100,000 more. What do you? It's got a fridge. What else do you get from $100,000? That's often what you find in this project down here for us. What could have been spent in swimming?
What happened to all of the school pools? I mean, why was there such a massive move to close all the primary school swimming pools down?
We're just going to spend our opening cans of worms, aren't we, Duncan? I see what you're doing here. One of the big impetus for that was the change of structure around management schools and board of trustees, and you get, elected members, parents coming in running schools, responsible for bottom lines. And it's really easy. You look at a swimming pool, just like you go $9 expensive. You look at a running cost for a swimming pool, and a school will go $60,000 a year to run that pool. It's so expensive. And then you go, well, what if those lessons at the pool just saved 1 or 2 lives? What value would you put on that? But we didn't have those conversations. This is an easy saving, and what we've got now is schools go, okay, we'll shut the pool, we'll bus them to our local council pool, and then we've got high demand for schools at the local council pool, and then we've got planning where we have to now health and safety plan the trip for the kids, bus them there, have their lessons. This is really busy, it takes up a lot of time, we'll do less of it, and it is a massive problem.
And there's a cost to bus them as well, right? It's going to cost them X amount of money a year anyway.
There's a cost to get them there. Lucky.
Yep.
Because my local primary school in the 90s actually built a pool as opposed to knocking one down. And, it's still going to this day. They've got a good model around it. It's open all weekends and school holidays. And,
do they charge for people to use it?
You buy a season pass, basically.
So there you go.
And that allows you to get in. But you can bring along your whole family and friends of friends. And
Duncan, I was just going to say, there are models out there that work. And I would echo Jim. There's a couple that come to mind in Christchurch. Papanui School reached a deal with the local council and local developer where they gave some of their land for a pool to be built right adjacent to their school. We've got a summer pool where community members can buy a key for the summer and go in and use it. Lytton pool and Sumner and Littleton are outdoor pools, but community members can get keys and go and use it out of hours. We've got those shared space pools. I think you've got some of those agreements in Auckland, but they are by far the minority.
Yeah, if I just look at the little pool down the road from me, Milford Primary School rents their pool out to North Shore Swimming. And I'm pretty sure that they cover the cost of their pool just by renting lanes out through the course of the year, right? So there's definitely models that are workable.
Yeah, but going back to Dan's point, I think the challenge is that, it takes effort from the school to actually run that model. It's in some ways it's easier to close it down, and then you've just got that reduced overhead. So it's disappointing, but
everyone agencies are all overwhelmed these days. Police, public health, schools, everyone's under-resourced, underfunded, and overwhelmed with what they need to do, and they're drowning in red tape. And that's one of the reasons we do what we want to do. I spoke at the Swim Coaches Teachers Association conference, must have been last year now, I think, and we had all the Learn to Swim schools there, and we talked about the amount of students. So let's talk about kids that are in New Zealand. We're a population of around 5 million in New Zealand. We've got about 1 million kids here, and through our Learn to Swim programs, we capture about 20% swim competency. So out of 1 million, maybe 200,000 are coming out swim competent. So that's 800,000 growing into the pool that are non-swim competent, don't have skills that they can use, one, to enjoy it for health and wellness, but also to be safe in the open water. And then that leads to the next, and one of the reasons I'm here, if you're an adult and you're a non-competitor, you didn't have that experience as a teenager, where do you go? One, to learn how to do it, or two, to experience it. Where can you go? And those opportunities are few and far between, and that's really what we're advocating for. I'm really happy to see this government has a health and wellness minister. I might have his title wrong, but at least it's recognised now, and I think swimming has an important part to play in that.
Yeah, I mean, we live on an island, right? So if our community can't swim, we're looking for trouble, right?
Well, from a health and wellness perspective, I think it's really good, but you've opened another can of worms for me. You're talking about water safety there, aren't you?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, well, we've got 5 million people. Like you say, I can't remember. I should know this. Is it? We've got the 9th largest coastline in the world. I think the 9th. Someone could Google that for me. We have got a population of people in summer who are out there recreating around water all the time. The majority are novices and have no clue, in our terms, haven't read the instruction book or been given the instruction book. The amount of accidents that actually happen around water are quite minimal.
Okay, well, that's good news, right?
You imagine if people, instead of recreating around water, let's imagine that everyone that didn't have instruction went out and went to fly an aircraft. How would that go? It would be chaos. But actually, a lot of people go in the water without any particular idea, and they go reasonably well for it. One thing that irks me is how if you have an incident in water, it will likely make the front page. And an example is a tragedy, a river drowning. Quite often, though, a person with no swimming skills going into a river environment. Now, for someone without any skills, going into a river environment is hazardous. But I think that's the conversation that could be had. But what is often projected in the media is the river is dangerous or the ocean is dangerous.
Yeah.
Actually, as you guys know, with some training and some skills, it's a very enjoyable environment, and it doesn't need to be a threat. But going in without any ability, that is a risk.
So, Dan, do you think that when you're thinking about school kids, that we should change the focus to be more about just safe in the water rather than swimming? Get them safe in the water and then swim?
No, and that's the focus now of Water Safety New Zealand. They talk about survival skills and floating on your back, etc. Our argument is, and our approach, we will teach you how to float as part of how to learn to swim. We moved away from learning to swim. Our argument is if you know how to swim, you've got survival skills. And what we're talking about from swim survival, floating, better lay on your back, be confident in the water. They're all part of your swim skills anyway. So our argument is if you're going down that track and you're going to be instructing someone, why not give them a really robust toolkit rather than just the basics? In our mind, it's because we've lost out our pools, because we're short on resources, we've gone, hey, let's just go with the basics. But I think we can do better than that. And certainly when we teach our adults, we would argue we're teaching survival, operational skills in the water as part of learning to swim. We think it goes part and parcel.
So that sort of leads me on. You do a lot of adult education. What's kind of the adults that you deal with? Is it people who are coming to you to learn to swim, or is it people who want to swim better, or just get more skills? Where does your sort of customer base? How does it fit for the adult swimmers?
All of those. For a percentage breakdown, maybe we could do it in thirds. About a third of my clients that I deal with are actual learn to swim, and probably my favourite of those, and it's not uncommon, who have baggage. And I have a saying, all adults are collectors. We collect injuries, we collect emotional baggage, and we collect traits about how we learn. And what I will do, the first place I'll start with an adult learner swimmer that come in is not at the pool, it's sitting on the couch and having a talk about those backgrounds. And most adults and I've had to stay away from the water, have had a bad experience, and I really enjoy working through that. Then we've got adults who want to swim better quite often, and I think it's amazing. Again, another line that I use is everything you need in order to swim well and improve your technique is available on the internet. It's all there, and you can look it up. So why do people come to us? Well, one of the problems that we have these days is we're drowning in data. Everything you need is there, and also everything you don't need is there. So we try and give people a process and a structure and really narrow it down to the basics and help them understand where they fit in it, how their traits can fit into it, and also identify their baggage. And what I mean by baggage, for example, is usually, have either of you broken a bone? I've broken a leg or an arm.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. And often that doesn't heal as well, or we don't do all our physio. And when we get into our swim, that influences how we're swimming. So we identify all those sorts of things. And that'll go through, Jim, as well to someone who wants to swim better. Quite often they don't understand about how those things are influencing their swims. I probably enjoy least, and I apologise if any of our clients are watching it, who are really caught up in competition and elite. I think there's more, the higher up you go, the better you go, there's more support for you. It's almost like, here's a pyramid of ability up here, but actually the support for them is greatest. There's more people down here at the bottom of the pyramid who don't know what they're doing, lack skills, and there's least help and resources available for them. So that's where we feel we want to put our time and resources.
So that's called Dan Abel's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah, me and Maslow hung out, and we transferred some of his
giving
stuff
your age
over.
away again. What's the percentage split men versus women that come to you as adults?
Oh, I love that question. Really interesting. I started this in 2009. This segment we're talking about really, and think about me as a personal trainer of swimming. I only teach this stuff to adults one-on-one. And there's a reason for that, because everyone's baggage is different. And it's really personal. And think about it. If you are a non-swimmer and you are going to learn, one of the first things you do is take your clothes off. And we might talk about it for other people, but actually we get more and more body conscious. And just think about a local public pool. If you're learning to swim, everyone can see you. You can't hide under your uniform or your garments. So that's why we go one-on-one and we try and make it as private as possible for people. In the beginning, and for a great period of the last decade, mainly majority female clients, probably 75-25. I'm really pleased to say in the last 12 to 25, and we'll note it, some days I'll come in and say to the crew, we'll have a blokes day, and I've had all male clients, and that over the majority of my career, coaching has been the rarity, but it's getting better. And I think that's important. We'll come back to the drowning statistics, because who's most likely to drown in New Zealand? It's usually an adult male in open water. And usually I think there's some ego, there's probably, but also there's an element of too embarrassed to ask for help, but also where do I go for help? Yeah. So that's been a big part of it. Yeah, good question.
And I've never met an open water swimmer that's not a nice guy, right? So most of them are super respectful. They've all been through a journey of some sort. They've all been in a tricky situation with regards to water. They have respect for water and all of those good things. So normally quite welcoming and quite eager to teach. But I'm now going to take you off your comfort zone and your lecturing about what you do on a daily basis. And I'm going to put you into an uncomfortable scenario. And I want to talk about you, Dan. So you were a whippersnapper. What university did you go to in the States?
Iowa. I went to the University of Iowa in swimming scholarship in the 90s. There's quite a strong history of Kiwis going through there, and that's how it used to be. Now there's a really formalized recruitment process for American colleges. I think it's a great opportunity for American swimming, and there's a lovely swimmer, ex-swimmer. No, she's still a swimmer. What's a swimmer? Natasha Lloyd. You have her on the show? You should have her on the show. She recruits into America now for collegiate opportunities. The collegiate scene has a really good platform, and that's where I wasn't a good racer until I went to America, and that's when I learnt to race. I wouldn't have kept swimming that long. New Zealand doesn't have the resources and the opportunities, and I think it's a really good avenue that was overlooked from a competitive level. But having said that, it is super competitive. And by the end of it, I was thoroughly burnt out and possibly might have walked into that category of walking away. But I was lucky enough to stay on and spend a summer working at the end of college. And I went back into a swim club where it was men and women training together, socializing, interacting, and having fun.
And then obviously you had useless information. What distances did you race? Were you a sprinter or longer stuff?
Oh, let's explore this a little bit more. It's a good question. I was a jack of all trades, master of none. And I don't really dwell on my collegiate career from a competitive perspective of being particularly successful. I think I was a very anxious person still. And it wasn't until I started coaching, get involved in swimming and health and wellness that I started to realize that. And I swam fairly poorly at American colleges at the high end, the competitive end. And I used to win dual meets. I swam the mile there. I swam a lot of freestyle, but I was a 200er, really. And from when I hit college all the way through, I plateaued. But if you ask, we used to go to train in Florida. And here's a good example. We used to go and train in Florida, and we'd have an award at the end of swim camp. And it was a coconut. We're a men's swim team. So you get the biggest nuts award, and I always used to win the biggest nuts award. I trained particularly well. I raced really poorly. Now, in my third year, we had an awesome coach who I admire, and I learned a lot about myself. His name is Artur Voidat. I think he broke the world record in the 400 free in about 86. He certainly medaled at the Olympics in 88, and he coached our team, particularly the distance squad, and I've never swum as hard. I've never pushed myself as hard. I never will again. But he used to get me ready for my races. And he was a new coach, and he was a brilliant coach. But before I'd go race, he would slap me around the face and give me, psych up, let's go. Now, I've told you, now I know that I'm an anxious person. No one pushes me harder than myself. So if you take that type of personality and you give them more, if anyone who from our age group has studied an arousal curve, you go up and over it pretty quickly and down the other side. And I love, from a coaching perspective, reflecting not on my clients, but you get to reflect on yourself. And that really influenced my performance there. And I take that on board in how I operate now, how I deal with my clients, and really where I try to channel people. And I said it at the start, the real competition for me at college wasn't the other teams or their competitors. The real competition was me. And I think more people from a longevity in their swimming can get more out of it by understanding that. It is a greater challenge in, can I swim to that island? Can I complete that distance rather than trying to beat that person? And I think you'll get more out of it. And that's the approach I take for myself now. And we'll get this in now because we haven't talked about it now. One of our key recipes for that success is having fun.
We're talking to one of the other swimmers on the podcast, Woody or Wiramu. And, one of the things that I took away from him were a lot of he's Maori, and a lot of his friends kind of quit when they were doing swimming lessons because they stopped having fun pretty early on, just, I got to get on the side of the pool and kick. There's no fun in that. And they kind of walked away from it really sort of early on. So I think you've absolutely nailed it. People have got to enjoy doing something or they won't do it.
But there's different definitions of fun, right? So some people enjoy pushing the boundaries or swimming faster than they've swum before, and that might be fun for a certain phase of their swimming career. But yeah, I'm with you, Dan. For us, we choose our swim locations on the weekend based on what the weather's doing and what the coffee shop is closest to the swim venue. And obviously the people that you swim with is what makes the swim, right? But before I lose you, you obviously then left varsity. You came, I'm assuming, back to New Zealand and joined the Air Force. I'm assuming you stopped swimming completely for quite a long period of time.
No. Interesting. There's a swim test to join the Air Force. There's really good pools in the Air Force. And actually, that last Nationals I said when I was 33, I was in the Air Force. Good thing about military is there's a fitness focus. Funnily enough, there's a lot of people there's quite a few guys still in the Air Force now who I helped pass their swim test. So there's always that element of helping people. But that little gem that I got at the end of college, that swim club that got that spark going again, I always kept in touch with pools. And you'd always find me. People will know from the Air Force, they'd find me down at an Air Force pool.
How did you go from there to English Channel, Cook Strait? You've done some epic marathon swims. What got you to that level?
Yeah, I've done some marathon swims, but I'm not a marathon swimmer. I did them as part of my own personal journey. How did I get there? I took leave from the military because I was moving around a lot, getting posted, and I wanted to take some control. So the first step was actually taking an extended leave from the military to decide what I want to do. I went to London. I started managing a health club over there, and that's when I went for a rock climbing lesson, met a wonderful guy called Jack. He drew me into an English Channel relay team, and these guys, I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Mick was pretty good. We called him swim number 2. Guy Meadows, you can look him up, swim doctor, wonderful. Sleep doctor, wonderful sleep doctor guy. And then Jack, the pure rock climber. And imagine a rock climber with no body fat at all, who's very busy, did no night swimming practice. And Jack was tenacious, but almost went backwards when he got us in. Our boat captain offered us, and I read this in Lynn Cox's book, Swimming to Antarctica, one of the inspiring books back there. I love Lynn and Lynn's journey. I think she's a really modest, humble swimmer, and I loved her book. And she talked about her English Channel captain offering them half price if they quit then. And I had only read it a couple of weeks before, and we're out. It's the middle of the night. Jack has been sick and hasn't eaten anything, and he's in there almost going backwards, and the captain offers us half price. And by the way, all our support crew was vomiting as well. So there were 2 of us who were functional, and we were support crew and swimmers. And then I pitched it to these guys. I said, guys, half price. It's really rough. You guys are, if you want to go back. And they said, is it safe? And captain, is it safe? Oh, yeah, it's safe, but you're not doing very well. And they said, well, if it's safe, we're going to keep going until we either get there or you say, and I was like, oh, these guys are just tenacious. I love this. And
That's cool.
It was supporting each other. It was an experience that they're on. We've each got a pebble off the beach, and it's on the wall there, and it's a story. It's a memory, and that's more. And I enjoy being with these guys who had no swim experience more so than many of my other swim alternatives, people who had all that background. And then from that, I had people, who helped you do the English Channel? And I had people coming and asking me for help. And that's when that question came around, where do you go if you're an adult and you need help to swim? And I've got these unique skill sets that actually, when I look around, that there's not too many people that have a background like this. And then that's when I stumbled on a guy called Simon Murray, and you probably want to have him for a chat if you're looking for people to have him for a chat. So he started Swim Check in 2003. I gave them a call. I was like, this looks great. They do swim holidays. I want to go on a swim holiday. And I went and met them, and they said, we've got all the skill sets to come and be a guide. And what does that entail? They said, well, you need experience first, and we'll let you know. And then about 3 or 4 weeks later, they said, our guide's fallen over in Greece. Do you want to go run swim holidays for us? And this is 2003. I think Simon Murray was very visionary and runs a fantastic product and cottoned on very early. It's about swimming. It's about socialization. It's about location and food. And when you bring all of that together, that's when it really gets special. Now, I started guiding for them, and I had adults turn up that they still have a good experience, but they weren't really ready. And I went back to Simon, and I always remember that Simon and I, and this is how I like doing business, we sat on the beach in Brighton and had a beer. And I said, where do adults go to get ready? We need to set up an adult program. And I said, well, if I'm going to do this, I need to be there. So I ended up resigning from the Air Force to do this. And I stayed in London. Simon and Swimjik had a contract at the Tootingbeck Lido, 100-yard outdoor pool that's what I call naturally heated. So from that, you can read UV rays only. And I ended up teaching from absolute nothing, an adult in 14-degree water. Now, what you have to do then is engage with them, baffle them, communicate, enthrall, and give them a framework. And this is really interesting for me. Then they would learn to swim. And they hadn't been anywhere else. And so they only knew 14, 15, 16, 17-degree water. Now, I could take that newly developed adult swimmer, throw them in anywhere, and then to function. And then a week later, for example, I'll have a client turn up who wants to swim a bit faster, and they do all the swimming in the world, and they're amazing at Virgin Active 25-metre, 28-degree pool. And then we put them in the Lido, and all of their skills would go out the window. So that's why I have two facets to our teaching. Basic swim skills and environmental confidence. And you need both of them to go together, and that's my Tekapo theory. So that's where I started doing it in London. And London really taught me about those aspects of it, but also the pool. It's not a pool, it's a community centre. An outdoor pool is a community centre where people come together and they don't even have to swim. They look at water, they can watch other people swimming, they can hear water moving. And that's really important. And then fast forward to 2011, the earthquakes, New Zealand, and Christchurch in particular has a stress problem. I think swimming can help. And then jump again, and I've touched on this, come back. I want to set up this program, let's do it. And that's when I ran into so many brick walls about where we can do it. Where, and if you're in Christchurch, you want to go open water swimming, where do you go? And that was our first problem bringing this home. Excuse me while I take a breath.
Yeah. I've seen some of the articles when you've been challenging the council about how they classify things as safe or not safe. Yeah, interesting.
One of our early projects back here was setting up what we called a swim advisory. So we knew more people were going in the harbour swimming, and they would go all over the place, and there was really no advice on when and where to go. And we like, as a small business, to be efficient, we're looking for easy wins. So we said, how about we put in some buoys where open water swimmers typically go. Let's have them unique and easily recognisable with swim markers on them. let's have some signage around it, not just in the bays, but also at the boat ramps. So boaties know that that's where swim it. Let's have them clear of moorings away from the boats. Let's have them places that we know are relatively safe, and let's have a place where most swimmers go, so you got more swimmers, so they're more visible. And this is me, just, I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. If we do this, why can't we get the harbour masters talking? Why is it not achievable that you could drive up and down the country and all of these open water swim areas where people commonly go have the same buoys and the same signage, and they're marked and you can go and find them? That was the project that we started in 2013, 14. We got the buoys in the harbour. We got some maps there. I had some interest from Queenstown. I've got a really good marked area there. There's one that I know in Wanaka. We know Wellington has theirs, but they use the 5-knot buoys. One of the reasons we don't use the 5-knot buoys is because you can have a boat just in the 5-knot or right on it. And if a swimmer's using that, we often know swimmers don't go in a straight line. So we wanted it inside the 5-knot area. But could we get harbour masters to buy in, talk to each other, and get some consistency? So we ran out of resources to achieve that. But that was an early project that we have, and I still think it has value today.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. The only place in Auckland that comes close to that would be Takapuna, Jim, where the guys, I'm assuming it's by default, have sort of arrived at Takapuna being, where the majority of the guys go and swim, and they use the 5-knot yellow buoys as markers. It effectively goes out a mile and back. And generally all the boaties and everybody knows where the swimmers are. But in the same breath, there's people swimming in different directions at times. There's windsurfers out there. I've gone up to the windsurfers and had a chat to them saying, hey guys, do you see me when you're kite surfing? Because I'm swimming, I'm low in the water, I've got a tow float. I'm stopping all the time because I'm nervous that you don't see me and you're going to sort of come and slice me in half with your fancy, I don't know what you call those things, a wind foil or, And the feedback was, we can see you from so far away. You are so visible because we're looking for movement in the water. We're looking for objects in the water. You stand out like a sore thumb. We can see you. When we're coming towards you, we know where we're going and we're going to go around you. But I don't know that as a swimmer, right? And it would just be nice to coordinate all of that so everybody's singing the same hymn, right? Because it's when you go out alone swimming, again, as a new swimmer, to go out alone is a stressful experience, right? When you've got a little bit more experience, I still wouldn't recommend going out swimming alone, right? But there's a lot to navigate out there, and we definitely need the help, I guess, to your point, Dan, from council. We're not going to be able to get tons of people.
Even at Takapuna, it was a little disorganized. They put out some different colored buoys inside the 5-knot markers, and they were actually targeted for swimmers. But people had been swimming at the beach for so long that most of the swimmers just ignored it, right? Because they weren't going to go and swim on the pink ones. They were going to stick with their yellow ones that they'd known for ages. So I think a part of it was just a lack of communication, trying to get the message out of this is why we've put them out. And if you stick to the to the swim buoys instead of the 5-knot buoys, then you're going to be safer and things like that. I think there's a whole bunch of communication that we need to work on.
The population's only growing. Our water activities are only getting busier and busier, and we know in the last few years, particularly post-COVID, boat sales are through the roof. For me, in the industry work in, and I know Duncan and I have touched this in our private conversations, there is a health and safety issue in New Zealand, and part of the health and safety approach is really waiting for an accident to happen and then reacting to it. The reality is, at some point, there needs to be some sort of formal training for boat operators. as there's more and more activity out there, there needs to be, just like on the road, you need to be a suitable person to operate that craft. And I think that's a reality, and higher-ups need to acknowledge that sooner rather than later, and acknowledge that because there's more users out there, I want people to be free to go and do what they want and enjoy it as much as possible. But at a certain level, there needs to be communication and some guidance to enable people to go and do this with a level of safety. And I don't think we're using the opportunities in New Zealand effectively to make that happen. Like I said, to be able to have a national standard of swim buoy that harbour masters use up and down the country, you can be driving along through Dunedin, you can be driving through Takapuna, through Christchurch, and look out and go, oh, that's a swim buoy. I recognise that colour, that design, and I can get on a website and look for a map. That's where I should go. And everyone's doing something slightly different. We're 12 years into that project, and we've made little headway, but we keep chipping away. We've got our swim advisory here. Little groups are doing their things. But if people, part of my conversation, getting people thinking about it, what can you do in your community to add that? I like you, Duncan. Back in 2013, I bought 1,000 tow floats into New Zealand.
Wow.
And, man, trying to move them. We moved. We chipped away and we got there. And then, funnily enough, right, after I'd held that stock for about 5 years, the last 200 I probably could have sold for $80 each because, wow, now they're going. But that's a really good example. That technology, that really simple concept to make it safer, took so much time to get into the mainstream. And I think there were many local bodies out there. Now, a really good example of that, which frustrates me, I think in Wellington there's a bylaw, is it more than 200 metres from shore, you have to wear a tow float. Is that correct in Wellington?
100%. That's correct. Yep.
Yeah, so
and
Auckland you don't. Christchurch
nothing.
You don't.
No.
But also in Wellington, right, you could swim 50 metres from shore, not with your tow float because you don't have to, and an unlicensed person who doesn't care jet ski could come around the corner at 80 kilometres an hour within 50 metres of shore. So, if you're listening and you're going open water swimming, just wear your tow float. Just wear it.
100%. 100%.
We're with you on that one.
Do you use the Safe Swim website?
Safe Swim is at the water quality website.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
so
use
it's a
it
water
at all?
quality website. No.
Not. Okay.
And I'll tell you why. We don't go into any areas generally now where that is applicable. But I don't know if you've been following our journey for the last 2 seasons. Not this one, because, and I'll be honest here, again, post-COVID, we're really limited resources. I went to 7 meetings, local body meetings about water quality, and we said the same thing at 7 meetings. 7 meetings. And then, do you know what happened? I got asked to go back for an 8th meeting. And I'm like, hey, we don't get paid for this. We're lobbying. 7 meetings saying the same thing. So, Safe Swim, I'd have to look it up. You've got me there. We have, what's the Lawa site? We've looked at the Lawa site.
Yeah. So Safe Swim, the problem with Safe Swim for Christchurch, it was a Auckland Council initiative.
Yes, that's right.
That happened quite a long time ago. And then I got involved and I got Surf Lifesaving involved because I was frustrated that they could say, oh, look, the water is safe to swim out at Piha when there's got 4-meter surf coming in. So no, the water quality is fine, but it's not safe to swim. So Surf Lifesaving got involved and, of course, they're national. So now they're trying to push this site out to more places, but other councils don't have the water quality aspect of it that Auckland Council's built into it. So again, it's a mixed bag, and we'll have to see how that actually progresses over time. But outside of Auckland, I think it really is about getting the surf life-saving teams to say when they're on patrol and if there's any issues. So it's kind of limited outside of Auckland.
I would take it a step further, and I think Surf Lifesaving New Zealand have a massive fantastic role to play in education and water safety on the beaches. That's where the home is. Our problem is we're wider than that. I want to see lakes in there. I want to see rivers. I want to see more access to outdoor swimming pools so that people are low competency. Right now, low competency people are pushed to rivers in summer because you don't get access. There's not that many outdoor pools. And just what you touched on, Jim, this is what I was going to the meeting saying, you are advertising water quality and you're using the term safe to swim, and you're to a low competent person, you're saying the water quality is not great in the harbour, and that's a whole nother topic, but you're saying it's safe to swim at the beach. And just what you're saying here, there's a 3-metre swell there right now. And I called and I had a long conversation with the Canterbury District Health Officer. And I said, okay, so you're saying it's safe to swim there. Can you give me your risk assessment, please? What are the criteria you've used for, you've just done water quality. I think it's really important. And we had, the first season, we ended up ourselves driving, and it took 3/4 a day to do this, go and get water quality tests and take them into a lab and get results. And we had a whole community willing to do that. We took them into our local council, and the local council had their own agenda, which was not really swim orientated. It was about protecting risk groups, high risk groups, which we're talking about 5% of the population, which we think is important. But what about the 95% who want to go swimming, who need to go swimming in a safe place? So I agree with you, Jim. Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, beaches. But my challenge to Surf Lifesaving New Zealand, surf lifesaving clubs are a brilliant place to run an open water swimming group. And how about having some IRB teams going out providing safety for a open water swim group? And how good would that be for recruitment to surf lifesaving clubs instead of maybe competition or just beach rescues? Get adults in and offer a swim course out of the surf lifesaving club where you could go and swim a course and provide IRBs for safety. They're resourced for it. They're in the right place for it. That's an element that I think that they could really step up to. And then the other part you're talking about, I love swim safe versus water quality. And we're talking about currents, waves, depth, and we're talking about matching it up. I would like to see it matched up to your competency and having discussion around competency rather than whacking up a sign saying, caution, this water is deep. Well, actually, I'm going to dive in. I want deep water, or caution, this water is shallow. Well, actually, we're low competency. That's perfect because you can wade in there with your child. Yeah.
That's very interesting conversation, Dan. I love the way you think. One of the things you said earlier was, it stuck with me, man, environmental competency. I think is an awesome way of trying to sum it up and trying to add to the whole swim language, right? Because I think we miss that most of the time. So we'll work with that, right?
Yeah. I think there's lots of possibility for just even the informal swim groups around the country just to be a little bit more accepting and welcoming of people who maybe don't have that competency, and just introducing them gently and safely to the beautiful world of open water swimming.
I'm going to get in trouble here because I can't remember his name, but I'm going to send it to you because and I don't know if you've interviewed him, researcher at Otago University around water safety and swim competency, and he might use a different term.
No, send it through. We'll gladly look at it up.
The research is there. Our frustration, I talked about the Swim Coaches Teachers conference last year. Water Safety New Zealand were there, and they were talking about setting up a lake competency framework in 2023. And it's like, we've been running lake introduction for the last 10 years. What do you want to know? And there are people doing that. It's not, and the research at Otago is there. I think there's a real disconnect between what people need in the community, the experts advocating for it, and then the deliverables. And I think there's a lot of wastage, and I find it frustrating.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, I think we're closing on time now. We've taken a lot of your time, Dan.
I thought this was 3 hours. I thought we were going 3 hours.
3 hours? Oh, geez. Here we go.
No, from my side, I really do believe that we're going to need to come back and interview again, Dan, in a couple of months' time. Just with there's so much that we can talk about. But I think for today, I'm pretty much done on my side. Have you got anything from your side, Dan?
Thanks, Jim and Duncan, for having me on the show. People that are listening in, if you think because you haven't got swim experience, you haven't been involved, you can. Anyone can learn to swim. You just need to find the right people, the right environment to support you through the journey. Just be patient with yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. I teach hundreds and hundreds of clients, and adults are so hard on themselves. Part of learning is making mistakes, making errors, and learning from them. And the swim journey can be such a special one. And what I love about it, you might be a runner, you might be a footy player, knees and hips go. Swimming is something you can do right through your lifelong journey.
As somebody who's got a knee replacement, I'm fully in line with you on that one. Okay, that's really cool, Dan. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Yep.
Thanks for having me on.
Right, thanks for listening. That was a great episode. As always, if you want to give us any feedback, send it through to cleverdicksnz@gmail.com or drop us a note on our Instagram page. Cheers, and we'll speak to you soon.